Want to see AOC blow up Trump's master plan and tell you what you can do about it?
If you are watching the news right now and you are feeling overwhelmed by all of the constant headlines and developments and what is happening, federal government changes over here and ICE raids over here and plane crashes over there, and you are feeling so overwhelmed, first of all, know that you are not alone. And second of all, know that that is exactly what this administration is trying to get you to feel. What authoritarian regimes try to do is that they often try to, what is known as flood the zone, do so much at once, or try to do so much at once that it gets carried in the news that you feel overwhelmed and paralyzed. And it's important for you to understand that the paralysis and shock that you feel right now is the point. They are trying to induce a state of passivity among the general public.
And do you think she's just making this up? No, here's Steve Bannon outlining it like 7 years ago.
The opposition party is the media. And the media can only, because they're dumb and they're lazy, they can only focus on one thing at a time. All we have to do is flood the zone. Every day we hit them with three things. They'll bite on one and we'll get all of our stuff done. Bang, bang, bang. These guys will never be able to recover. But we got to start with muzzle velocity. So it's got to start and it's got to hammer. It's got to muzzle velocity.
God, I agree. This guy should have a muzzle. And judging from both his and Trump's body types, I don't think they've traveled at any velocity for quite some time. And if you look at the news just briefly, you'll see a laundry list of this bearing itself out in front of all of our eyes. I mean, he tries to conquer or buy Greenland, maybe Canada, start a trade war against every country whose name he knows, coking Elon up and setting him loose in every government agency and saying, basically, if you can make money off of one of these agencies, shut it down and sell it off to the highest bidder. And I guarantee I forgot like 40 things. So what are you supposed to do in this scenario? There's a lot of people with a lot of different kinds of advice. Advice that I'd give and that AOC is giving is don't go numb. You may sound like you're repeating yourself a lot, but you gotta repeat yourself a lot. There's a lot of idiots out there who have thought themselves into utter paralysis and give you advice that basically says like, shut up and take it. They say things like, you shouldn't overreact to every single story out there about Trump. Well, if that narrative takes hold that we're overreacting to everything that Trump does, that opens up the possibility and actually incentivizes Trump to do a bunch of bad stuff all at the same time, all of which is horrible. Because if the world believes that we're just overreacting to everything, like it's not that we're crying wolf, it's just he's releasing a lot of damn wolves. That's what's happening, and he's incentivized to do so. And the other thing is they're always like, you guys are always calling us fascists. Well, first of all the stuff you're doing is like super fashy, dude. Super duper fashy. You have a billionaire in charge of one of the biggest social media sites out there, and certainly the fastest moving one, and the one that a lot of people looked at to find out what was happening right now and what are the analyses out there and what do people I genuinely agree with say about it. They've completely changed that. They've got all of the media kowtowing to them, bending the knee and all that stuff. And meanwhile, while they're telling us not to call them fascists, at every turn they call us communist pedophiles.
If you're excited by the daily adventure of hyperinflation, vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. These two economically, frankly, illiterate radicals with a penchant for literal communism are promising to drive our economy right off the cliff.
We can't afford Kamala Harris. She's a dangerous Marxist who wants to turn America into San Francisco.
Fidel Castro came in. The reason he took over power was he convinced all the business sector in Cuba that he was an anti-communist, that he was pro-capitalism. The Sandinistas did the same thing before they got into power. Now, I know there's not going to be a revolution here. We're going to have an election. But could it be the dark side that all this talk is just talk and she wants to go really far to the left, even further than Biden has gone?
Do you believe that the Communist Party has been grooming Tim Walz?
We must defeat Comrade Kamala Harris. I use that term because you know what that term means, right? Communist. She's a Marxist, communist, fascist, socialist.
There's a radical left Marxist, communist, fascist.
She's a Marxist. She's a fascist. It is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous. They're Marxists and communists.
Kamala Harris was not a communist Marxist psychopath, but that didn't stop them from calling her one. They're being fascists actively right now. Call them fascists. 4 years ago, they tried to suspend the Constitution. Elon is actively looking to end Social Security. So don't let them scare you into thinking it's like gauche to fight back. We need to repeat this stuff as much as possible. And we need to convince the folks that are even remotely seen as neutral arbiters of this that we're actually right about that. And I would argue like the insight that I'm laying out might be more interesting, fun, compelling, engaging, annoying, all the stuff that has a life on the internet than the crap that they're just doing over and over again. That itself should get boring to the masses. Oh my God, every time we call them a fascist for doing a Hitlerian thing, they call us communists even though we're not doing anything remotely close to it. Like, did you hear this dude?
Fidel Castro came in, the reason he took over power was he convinced all the business sector in Cuba that he was an anti-communist. Could it be the dark side that all this talk is just talk and she wants to go really far to the left?
I mean, what even is really far to the left in this day and age? I mean, what if we just want to go back to how things were at the end of Reagan's administration, when the top 1% only had 22% of the wealth in America, as opposed to over 30? How about back when we won World War II and started sticking it to those commies? How about when we had that tax rate? Is that being communist, advocating for a tax rate like this? When we were beating the communists? Let's just say this back to them. Let's pick some messages and attack them with those messages. And in her recent appearance on Jon Stewart's show, AOC offered a brilliantly coherent and simple messaging strategy.
People are struggling so much right now. $15 an hour is nothing. I believe that we need to be a party of brawlers for the working class.
There you go.
There it is. Go on the offensive. I mean, yes, Donald Trump right now is trying to hit us with this like Honda 1,000-hand slap approach. So slap him back, not just refuting his claims, but finding new fronts to open up in this war. Get back to fighting for Amazon workers in horrible working conditions and point out that there is a billionaire in charge of that company who treats his workers like crap. And that same guy who owns a newspaper and could be fighting back against Trump has decided to instead give him $1 million for inauguration and sit behind him so he could lick his butthole. The guy in charge of government efficiency is the richest man in the world and still advocating for tax breaks for himself, and he wants to take Social Security money away from grandma and give it to a 19-year-old so he can find more ways to take money away from grandma. Meanwhile, every other billionaire is pumping a ton of cash into artificial intelligence to replace his workers with machines. And the last place people can pick up extra cash? What, like rideshare driver? Well, Elon's trying to replace all of them with driverless cars. But still, this weird Reaganite conservatism, survival of the fittest, capitalism, wilderness myth manages to paint all these rich guys as what? Champions of the working class? Nuh-uh. And as we're all sitting out here without hope to make a good living, they head off to the crypto casino to strike it rich. But of course they don't. That's all just a scheme to make Trump rich at his followers' expense. Anyways, I don't know, man. We just need to practice message discipline, and that means saying the same thing over and over again. It might suck, but you gotta do it. Because that's what they did. They poured billions of dollars into a right-wing media and international social media ecosystem so that they can get a lot of the stuff we take for granted is just like, that's just how it is. They did that by repeating it over and over again, not by having better ideas. But that's just my take on it. What do you think? Like and subscribe. Write every idea you have down here. We'll brainstorm and then pick them and share them with 1 million people. Literally just 1 million. If 100 of us share it with 1 million people, that's 20 billion people we will have shared the message with. And that's a good start.